Hi, this is Samara, and I'm here to present a book talk on historical fiction. I'm going to begin with a quick description of what historical fiction is. It is usually a story about an event in the past where the setting is real, there are many historical people within the story, and the main character may be fictionalized, but may also be a true person. Authors of this genre do try to capture as many real facets of that time period that they're writing in. Who writes it in this genre? Authors such as Libba Bray, Laurie Halse Anderson, Ann Rinaldi, and Avi. Today I am presenting you with 3 books in this genre. The first book is Distant Waves, a novel of the Titanic by Suzanne Weyn. This book begins with kind of like a journal entry with Jane, who is our main character. The story is told through her memories and her eyes. It tells of her and her 4 sisters and their mother Maud, who is a medium. It tells of their journey from California to Spring Valley, I think it is, to eventually how the entire family gets on the Titanic. You'll notice a lot of names in this book that pop out at you from history. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Nikola Tesla. As a matter of fact, Nikola Tesla is mentioned quite often in this book, for it's one of his inventions that brings Jane and his assistant Thad together in the first place. The actual event of the sinking of the Titanic is given a completely new twist. I found quite fascinating and interesting, and I think you as the reader will also find it fascinating and interesting. The book, I'm not going to give away the ending, but I would have to say does seem to end happily. Again, that's Distant Waves, a novel of the Titanic by Suzanne Weyn. The second book I'm going to talk about is actually from one of my most beloved authors, Ann Rinaldi. It's entitled Or Give Me Death, a novel of Patrick Henry's family. Now, you might remember Patrick Henry being the person who cried, "Give me my liberty or give me my death." But did he really utter those words first? This book is told from the perspectives of 2 of his daughters. The first part is actually Patsy, and the second part is Anne. This takes place in the early 1770s. It really focuses a lot on Patrick Henry's family, especially his wife Sarah, whom succumbs to a genetic mental disorder. It shows you what the family goes through as Patrick Henry himself travels along through the American colonies, advocating for their freedom from Britain. It tells of the struggles of the children, of Sarah's rapid decline into this inherited mental disorder. It gives a good peek into what the people of colonial times actually did do as far as people that had diseases. They were crazy, they were locked in cellars, they were given a lot of drugs because they didn't have the medical knowledge at that time that we have today. Ann Rinaldi writes this book in such a way that she takes hold of your hand at the beginning and she runs through the history that we know of and weaves in the fictional tales, so you are just captured and you're drawn through the story and you're kept wanting to turn the page. This, again, Or Give Me Death, it explores the events and the life and times and struggles of Patrick Henry's family in colonial America. The last book I'm going to be speaking about is probably one of the most famous storylines that we've all heard about. I've all studied the Holocaust at some point. We know about Anne Frank. This book is entitled Annexed. It is by Sharon Dogar, and it takes a look at Peter Van Pels, who was the young man who came with his mother and father to hide in the annex with Anne Frank, her sister Margot, their parents Edith and Otto, and eventually a doctor, Dr. Pfeffer. So there were 8 people living in this annex above Anne Frank's father's warehouse. This is written in diary form, similar to Anne Frank's diary. It is interspersed with italicized excerpts that portray Peter's thoughts and memories as he's actually in the death camps. The first part takes you through Peter's eyes, through his voice, from the moments before they went into hiding to the day they went into hiding, through the 2 years and some odd months that they were in hiding. It portrays his growing love for Anne. It portrays all of the issues that 8 people faced in a small, locked-up space for 2 years and some odd months. Very heart-wrenching. It really plays at your heartstrings. It's well written. It is a page-turner. The fact that it comes from a male's point of view is really awesome. I know it's a hard subject, the Holocaust, but many of the voices that we have heard from the Holocaust, many of the writings and the witnesses and the testimonies have all been focused on they and groups of people as a whole, and single people have not really been sought out and looked into as one person amongst the many. It's told from Peter's view. It's very, very well written. You feel like you could actually be sitting there watching this happen or be talking with Peter at one of these points in the story. I actually have chosen a part of this book to read to you. It is towards the end. I think it really engulfs what the author tried to portray through Peter's eyes. So, here we go. And this is actually in the second part where Peter is in the death camps. In the end, we know from history that Otto Frank was the only survivor of the 8 people locked in that annex. So this is towards the end of the war, towards the end of the camps, towards the liberation of the camps. It says, "If there is a heaven, then it is crowded with us." I take a breath, and with my last thought, blow the leaves of her diary up from the annex floor. I watch them as they fly, up through the attic window, past the tree, past the birds and the chimes of the church clock, beyond Anne, beyond me and Mutti and Poppy and Otto and Margot and Edith, up and up and up into the air, to where the hands of our enemies can no longer catch them. Her words are written. My story is told. I am dying, but others will survive. Above us, the words of millions hang waiting in the war-torn air like the last shreds of a burnt-out fire, floating like pieces of ash. Soon they will settle. Some words will return with the living and never be spoken, but others will rise up in flames and cover the earth. Now do you believe in words? Anne whispers. Yes, I do. Very touching. The author does point out, she does give a little brief synopsis of what happened to each of the 8 people that lived in the annex. Though they were young and old alike, in my eyes, I feel they were all too young to have perished in the way they did. Definitely a good book to read. Again, that's Annexed by Sharon Dogar. So, my book talk today focused on historical fiction. It is mixed in with action and adventure and suspense. you should go to your local library and explore historical fiction on your own. There are many, many more authors of historical fiction that I've not mentioned today. There are authors that have written in several genres, so go out there, even ask your school librarian, ask your public librarian. I'm sure they would be glad to help you find new books to read in the historical fiction genre. The 3 books that I presented today were Distant Waves, a novel of the Titanic by Susan Wayne, Or Give Me Death, a novel of Patrick Henry's Family by Anne Rinaldi, and Annexed, a novel by Sharon Dogar. 3 excellent books, not very thick, easy reads, great knowledge, and I feel a great introduction to the historical fiction genre. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you at the library.